Let's pick up where we left off. Shall we? You're definitely getting close to the end. Defense requests. Further cross-examination. Let's go with that. Further cross-examination.
Objection!
The jurors have spoken. Protocol dictates that you may not cross-examine a new witness now.
Objection!
The defense is not asking for the cross-examination of a new witness, rather to continue with one of an existing witness. What? It would appear that a rather important detail has escaped your attention, Mr. Reaper. My lord, requesting your lordship's permission to interrupt the cross-examination. Thank you, officer. Very well. The cross-examination is hereby temporarily suspended. Presume you have no objections, counsel? No, my lord. So nobody can say anything, then, if Ryuno asks to resume his cross-examination of Mr. Graydon. The court is obliged to allow it. This is absurd. I would remind those present that this is my courtroom. I concur that the defense is entirely within its rights to request the continuation of the cross-examination. However, I will not permit an unremitting protraction of these proceedings. Therefore, I've decided to afford the defense one final opportunity at concluding the cross-examination. Oh, we're in the endgame now. Counsel, you must choose but one statement for the witness's testimony, and but one piece of evidence to present in support of your argument against it. A single chance to present evidence. If, following that, the situation remains unchanged, I shall move to adjudication. Is that clear, counsels? You will not press the witness any further. My lord. Yes, my lord. A single statement and a single piece of evidence. Most generous. Well then, Mr. Naruhodo, it's high time I fell in a dead faint. It's time for me to pass out now. Goodbye. I leave this in your capable hands. Oh! Woo! Thud. Mr. Sholmes! No, it's time for you to pass out. Goodbye. To stand so insouciantly before the court in state of such a high fever, whether the man has extraordinary strength of mind or an extraordinary lack of feeling. I imagine he's feeling very little now. The detective is sleeping soundly in one of the antechambers. Strike a man when he's down, why don't you? Well then, counsel, are you fully prepared? Yes. One statement, one piece of evidence. Don't let Mr. Sholmes down, or Iris. Stop! I won't waste this final chance that Suzato-san has given me. It is going to decide the entire outcome of this trial. Very well, then. For the terms I've outlined, you may resume the cross-examination. Here we go. Moment of the shooting again. Oh yeah, here we go. One statement. One piece of evidence. I think we need to go here. But just in case. Let's take our cat flappo mat and examine it first and foremost. Gamer keys? It's our first chance to actually look closely at this thing. Oh my god. Ooh, those vicious teeth look like they could rip through almost anything. They're good, aren't they? They're made of a special alloy I developed just for this job. The cutter rotates 10 times per second, so it'd get through any kind of door in no time at all. And what are the two parts at the top there? Ah, those are for attaching hinges to the section of door that gets cut out. Right, of course. Nothing can match this machine for power. It could make mincemeat of even the toughest of doors. It sounds so charming and friendly when you say what it's for, but it feels like the reality of the cat Flapobat is that it's a grim weapon of door destruction. Wagahai is so adorable, there's nothing I wouldn't do for him, even developing deadly weapons. Iris, please. That is vicious. Holy shit. Some savage teeth, but referencing the peephole in the door, you get the implications of why Susanoo gave us this evidence. And what she might have been hiding, right?
Objection!
What on earth is that eccentric contraption, Counsel? Ooh, it's my cat Flapobat, my lord. It makes a way for cats to get in and out of a room. It can cut through any door you can think of, and make a new little door in the middle of it. That's right, my lord. It's a device for creating so-called cat flaps. Small doors for cats to come and go as they please without their owners having to open the main door. I'm sure we can all work that out for ourselves. Huh. But that cat lover's contrivance has no possible relevance to this case. Oh, really? Of course it doesn't. To start with, there was no cat flap in the pawnbroker's door. Not being a keeper of cats myself, I'm afraid I fail to see what this has to do with the matter at hand. Perhaps it would help if I described its function another way, then. This contraption. Able to create a peephole in any door you can imagine in practically no time at all. I beg your pardon. A peephole, you say? Now do you see? 2 nights ago. You arrived at the scene only minutes after the murder of Mr. Windbank had taken place. Well, that's right. According to the paperwork at the yard, it was you, your Japanese assistant, and Scholes. Yes, the 3 of us were together. It's recently come to my attention that my assistant made use of this device at the time. Your assistant did what? There was a peephole in the storeroom door. I can attest to that. So I looked through the peephole myself in order to see inside the locked storeroom. This is ludicrous. What are you trying to say? Of course there was a peephole in the door. I said as much as my testimony. How else could I have witnessed the crime, for pity's sake? Yes, how could you? What? Counsel, kindly say what you mean. Alright, it's time. Time to strike the final blow. What I mean is this, my lord. My assistant made the peephole in the storeroom door, until such time as she did. The door had no hole in it to look through. What? No!
Objection!
This is a farce. Are you really suggesting that the peephole in the door was... Yes, it was created only after the incident had taken place. My judicial assistant using this device. Your assistant tampered with the crime scene whilst being fully aware of the gravity of her actions. This is the most serious act of vandalism. For which I humbly apologize, my lord. It's in the few minutes that I left the scene in order to pursue the Skulkin brothers and alert the police. Nevertheless, in the light of this new information, it becomes apparent that Mr. Graydon's testimony is riddled with holes. Riddled with... Explain yourself, counsel. Majority of Mr. Graydon's testimony that appears to incriminate the defendant is based upon what he witnessed through the peephole in the storeroom door. That filthy girl shooting the man in black. Man in the back, rather. However, if at the time of the incident, that people did not yet exist in the door, there's no possible way that you could have seen what you claim to have seen. Ugh. In short, your entire testimony is a pack of lies. Ugh. I can see the court finding this absolutely preposterous to believe, but unlike the blood colors, I could also see this being fairly simple to test. Number 1, test the device to make sure it produces a door and hinges. Then number 2, compare the device to the peephole in the storeroom door. Is there any credence in this revelation?
Objection!
So it's testable, unlike blood vibes. None whatsoever, as my learned friend must surely realize. Exactly. This is just some cheap trick designed to discredit me. I'm afraid not, sir. Of course it is. Do you seriously expect people to believe that plaything can cut through a solid wooden door? Oh yes, they designed it to be very powerful. It can cut through even the toughest of doors. It's absurd. I don't believe it for a second. Let's test it. I had a feeling you'd say that. What? Waggy, Cooey, time for dinner. Hi. How did you get here? Well? Young lady, this is the Old Bailey. One does not make cat flaps in the oak paneling at the Old Bailey. I'm not done yet, don't worry. It doesn't mean that peephole in the storeroom door at Winterbanks was made by your machine. And there's no way you can prove that it was. No? But it's easy. What? The cat flaps my cat flapper mat creates are all of a fixed size, and the dimensions of the people at the Winterbanks are an exact match. Ugh. Again, obscure of us to say outright, but testable and provable. Ultimately. So we can accept that. Old Silky's lost for words. Excellent work, Iris. Thank you. And now it's my learned student friend's turn to be lost for words, I feel. I believe your judicial assistant has already left the country for your Eastern Island home. Well, yes, that's true. Then you may have some difficulty in establishing all of the facts. For the sake of argument, let us assume that peephole has dimensions that are a perfect fit for this contraption. In that case, when was the peephole cut? The prosecution demands proof of your answer. Ah! What is the purpose of your line of inquiry, Lord Van Zieks? It's very simple, my lord. The defense argues that the peephole was created after the incident using this device. But now that the perpetrator has returned to her native land, she cannot testify to the fact. There is no proof. Ugh. Getting me on technicalities. For as long as the defense remains unable to prove when the peephole was made, my learned friend's claim amounts to nothing more than a baseless accusation. Come on, Skulkins! What? Come on, Skulkin bros, come through and tell us that there was no peephole in the door when they were looking through it. Indeed, that is so, Lord Van Zieks. Well, counsel, don't give up now, Runo. This is the time to create your own opening and force your way through. I don't know if I can do this, but I do know one thing. Suzato-san is the greatest judicial assistant in the world. Very well. Counsel for the defense will present evidence to support the claim made. Proof that the people in the door of Winterbank's storeroom was created after the event and not before. Oh boy. Let's dig through the evidence. Not that. Oh, wait, we have 1 a.m. No people. Oh shit.
Take that!
What are you? What are you? A print for the detective's infernal cameras again? My judicial assistant, Miss Susato Mikotoba, is an extremely intelligent and capable woman. Which is why I never had any cause to doubt that she would have considered this scenario and made sure I had the necessary proof. The necessary proof is that photographic print, Counsel. You see it, don't you? This print shows a scene in the shop once after the defendant entered the premises. Agreed. It also shows the accused mercilessly wielding a gun. You mercilessly wielded a gun in the direction of the defenseless broker. But more to the point, it pictures the storeroom door in the background. Let me see that print again. I don't believe it. This really is quite remarkable. The door to the storeroom. It's completely devoid of a peephole of any description. Ugh. Mr. Graydon. You couldn't possibly have witnessed the crime as you claim to have done. Because at the time it happened, there was no peephole in the door. Ah. In other words, your testimony. It's a catalog of lies. Woo! Spin to win. And everyone's back. Order! 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 I'm satisfied that the defense has substantiated its claim. Beyond all reasonable doubt. His testimony was entirely fallacious. That's not the only thing we now know beyond all reasonable doubt. My learned friend's assistant's guilt can no longer be denied. That woman tampered with a crime scene. But more importantly... Good lord, there's more, Lord Van Ziegs. The defense may have established a reprehensible instance of perjury. Oh, come on. That is no proof that this man is the victim's killer. Well, shit. Yes, that's right. What? I was there at the scene. It's true. And I was shot in the arm. It's true. But that's all. Yes, in fact, if you look at the circumstances, I am the victim here. Oh, please. No! I don't believe this. But they're right. As it stands now, I don't have any definitive proof that he is the culprit. Still, he can't worm his way out of it now. Iris? You know what they say. There's no point locking the cat's door after the cat has bolted. Bye, Wagahai. Isn't that right, Runo? As Hurley always says, one lie begets another. No, wait. That might have been a line I wrote for him in one of my stories. Fair enough. Well, the point stands. Well, no matter who said it first, you're right. Mr. Graydon, not only did you give false testimony to the court, the lies you told make no sense. Make no sense? What do you mean by such a remark? What you said in your testimony reveals that you know something you shouldn't have known. In other words, there's a fundamental inconsistency in your statements. What?
Objection!
This is provocative talk, Counsel. That the coat had blood on it. That's gotta be it, right? The coat had blood on it. He distinctly mentioned the blood splatter. gosh, I feel like that's gotta be it. Iris was right. One lie begets another. The inconsistencies revealed by the lies in the witnesses' statements. It showed that Mr. Graydon had knowledge of something he shouldn't have known anything about. Namely, feeling it's the blood on the coat. Peephole was talked about in court. Third gun was recently talked about in court. The bloodstains were never brought up in court. The bloodstains that were present on Miss Lestrade's coat. That's right, the victim's blood splattered all over her when she shot him. But how could you possibly have known that? Obviously because I saw her do it through the peephole in the... The point is not that you lied in your testimony, Mr. Graydon. It's the nature of the lie you concocted that is so revealing. You're not making any sense. Let me ask you a simple question. How is it, Mr. Graydon, that you knew of the existence of the people in the storeroom door? What? Well, obviously, I... Heard it in court. Has the cat got your tongue, witness? The peephole in the door was made after the incident occurred. Once I returned to the shop having failed to catch the two burglars, Scotland Yard's investigators arrived immediately. Since that time, the police have been at Windibanks constantly, carrying out their investigation. Or maybe... Isn't that right, Inspector Gregson? Maybe this is what... Well, yes, of course. The place is chock full of pawned articles, and my lads had to thoroughly examine them all. So I gave the order to have officers working around the clock in shifts and get through it all. Consequently, there's no way that you, Mr. Graydon, could have gained access to the shop. Okay, this seems to be going in a place where I wasn't anticipating. Therefore, you should have known nothing about the people in the storeroom door. The fact that its existence forms the basis of your testimony is completely inexplicable.
Objection!
And yet, the fact remains that Mr. Graydon did... Maybe they didn't talk about it that much in court. The fact remains that Mr. Graydon did maintain that he witnessed the crime take place through the peephole in the door. How on earth is this possible? Could I have a word, please, Lord Van Zeeks? Speak, Inspector. That's just that I really ought to be getting back to the station now to put in my report. There's really nothing more I can add to this testimony, so that's all the same to you. Permission denied. No. It's not all the same to me, Inspector. Not at all. You will remain exactly where you are until this trial concludes. Of course, sir. Mr. Graydon. You shouldn't have known about the existence of that peephole. Which can only mean that you must have been informed about it by somebody else.
Objection!
Stop there, my learned friend. You realize, I trust, the words you just uttered have extremely serious implications. Yes. The defense believes that the details about the case that Mr. Graydon claims to have seen must have been revealed to him by a certain person before his testimony. And in fact, considering a particular clue we have, there's really only one person that could be. Who was the person in question, counsel? Who gave this witness details of the crime scene to facilitate his false testimony? This clearly was Susato-chan. No, it's Gregsy.
Take that!
Remember the talk they were having during Gina's testimony? The truth is, it can only have been you, Inspector Gregson. Me?
Objection!
You had better have some proof to substantiate such a rash claim, my learned friend. Consider the fact that we have only been aware of Mr. Ashley Graydon's identity for the last few hours. We learned of it only during the course of the trial today. Indeed, preparations for his testimony were made with great urgency during our hour-long recess, while the police executed the subpoena and brought the man here from the communications station. And until that time, Mr. Graydon would have had no idea, no inkling that he would suddenly be required to appear in court. You suggested that until such time as he was summoned? Yes, my lord. Until then, it's reasonable to assume he knew nothing of the people. It was only once Mr. Graydon was in the stand that he realized his position. That he would have to defend himself against the accusation that he was the third intruder. Suggesting to the court that it was while this trial was in progress that he received the information. So that he could commit perjury in order to save his skin. Exactly. And the only person with knowledge of the investigation that he had any contact with is you, Inspector Gregson. This is a bloomin' outrage. Why would I be giving away details of my investigations to this fella, eh? I was summoned to his lordship's chambers during the recess in any case. Had you forgotten that? Quite true. I had a number of questions regarding the events that transpired at the pawnbrokery. Which means the first time these two laid eyes on one another was after proceedings resumed following the recess. Since then, they've been in full view of the stand, where such illicit discussions could possibly have occurred. Ooh, I've just remembered something, Runo. What is it, Iris? There was one time before, wasn't there? I think it was when Ginny was testifying. Oh, yeah, now that you mention it. When the bailiff was dispatched to retrieve McGilded's music box from the scene of the crime. That's it! It was during that testimony. Yep. When Gina was testifying. I remember finding it strange at the time. Mr. Graydon and the inspector seemed to be having some kind of secret discussion. Would have been possible for you to give Mr. Graydon the information he needed then. Even if you interrupt them literally the first chance you got, like I did. You toe rag! You're making this all up? I am a respectable Scotland Yard inspector, for crying out loud. Why would I do something like that? I want to be giving away confidential details to the likes of this bloke. Admittedly, you wouldn't have had any reason to do something like that for no gain. But perhaps it was part of a deal of some kind. Then it starts to make more sense. What deal, Counsel? I wonder if perhaps in exchange for details about the people at the crime scene, Mr. Graydon agreed to give a certain something to the inspector. I'm sure I need not remind the inspector that, if found to be true, striking a deal of any kind with a witness would be considered a gross case of malfeasance. Well,
Objection!
It's becoming clear. No one in this case is innocent. That jumping in with accusations, this Nipponese student's specialty. I don't do that. But with the stakes so high, the prosecution is not prepared to listen to baseless charges. It is incumbent on the defense now to present evidence in support of this diabolical claim. Evidence? Just what are you proposing that the inspector demanded of the witness in return? The court must see proof of this alleged deal. And now it all comes together. Inspector Gregson really did strike a deal with Mr. Graydon. And logically, there's only one thing he could have asked for. That must be it. Runo, do you think it could be? Yes. It's the missing link that would join all the dots together in this puzzle. I must press you for an answer now, Counsel. What evidence explains the nature of this alleged deal that Inspector Gregson made with the witness? That... Is it this?
Take that!
Yes, it is. The second disc. Inspector Gregson. Besides this murder, is it not true that you've been working on another, very important case? No, are you getting that now, Sunshine? Is it possible that this other, top-secret case is what's alluded to in the newspaper article here? The classified secrets being leaked overseas from the Ministry of Justice. How the bleeding no, could you? Discovered during the course of this trial that the music box deposited at Windibanks by Magnus McGilden. A special music box designed to play 2 discs at once. It seemed very likely now that encoded on the pair of discs that were in McGilden's possession are the leaked classified secrets. So I put it to you, Inspector, that in order to recover the second of the discs containing those secrets, you covertly made a deal with Mr. Graydon, in which you exchanged the disc for the details of the case. You little... White chips! Order! On the day of the incident, when we met you at Windibanks, you said this. I'll be taking that whatever it is of McGilden's down to the yard, thank you very much. So hand it over. No, don't. Don't give it to him. It's mine, that is. Mine. Sorry, miss. Anything belonging to McGilden has to be taken in as evidence now. Scotland Yard already knew at the time, isn't that right? That Magnus McGilden was involved in the stealing of government secrets. My orders were, I'd recover the medium used to convey the secrets leaked for the ministry, and do it on the QT, strictly hush-hush. That explains why, when I presented this disc as evidence to the court, you objected so heavily, I presume. And as you knew that it contained highly confidential information. Well, blimey, not likely. I mean, I wasn't that sure of it myself. I realized there was a possibility, that's all. Inspector, surely you're not saying that in order to acquire the second of these music box discs, you did indeed reveal the confidential details of the crime scene to the witness, to aid and abet this man in giving false testimony. There's no other way that Mr. Graydon could have known of the existence of the people. It's the only explanation. A deal was struck between these two men. No!
Objection!
Gregson truly becomes the third Skulkin brother. If, and I stress, if, the sobering assertion turns out to be founded in truth. It would mean that the second disc is, as we speak, here in this very courtroom. Wait, what? In this room? How could you possibly make a claim like that? Because Inspector Gregson is a Scotland Yard detective. What? Well, what's that supposed to mean, eh? As a seasoned policeman, the inspector will have approached this alleged deal with caution. Certainly he would not have accepted a gentleman's agreement in this matter. No, he would have insisted on having the article agreed upon in the palm of his hand. Good gracious, then you mean to say Inspector Gregson already has the item in question in his possession. He has the second disc actually on his person.
Yes!
The defense demands that the inspector is searched at once. That was a beautiful time to bring that voice clip back. That was amazing. Definitely. They could only have struck a deal with each other when Ginny was testifying before. And Gregsy hadn't moved from the witness stand since. My lord, please, order an examination of his personal effects immediately. Well, Inspector. Come on, Gregsy. What you gonna do? This old lad wants to tone down his imagination. It's insulted me in my profession quite enough. However, it'll put this matter to bed and dispel any doubts about my involvement. I'll happily submit to a body search. Oh, What? He's gonna agree to it? Just like that? Presume you're aware of the precipice on which you now teeter, my learned student friend. You made a most serious allegation against Scotland Yard here. If, following the search of the inspector's personal effects, no disc is found, you will be deemed unfit for court service. This trial will end, and my country's government will formally demand of yours that you are severely reprimanded. That sounds serious. Indeed. To have a visiting student make such defamatory remarks about our country's most senior police force is not something Her Majesty's government will be able to overlook. You're just threatening Runo because you're scared. The accusation is beyond serious. You must be prepared for grave consequences. It's true. I can't imagine Gregson would have accepted the gentleman's agreement for something so critical. This must have physically changed hands, which means the inspector should have it. But somehow, something doesn't feel quite right here. Very well, Counsel. You know the implications, so let me ask you one final time. Yes, my lord. Do you still persist in formally requesting a search of the inspector's personal effects? Ooh. Oh, I get it. We don't want to do that. I do want to kind of check these choices for bad endings. Search someone else. You can't fool me, Gregsy. Yes, the defense formally demands the search be conducted. Well, don't say you weren't warned, but your typical Nipponese stubbornness may well land you in hot water this time. Perhaps a lesson will do you some good. Fair enough. I've got nothing to hide. Did I accidentally pick the wrong choice? Very well then. Bailiff, not to search the inspector's personal effects, please. Okay, good. Slap. Defense demands a search, but not of Inspector Gregson. What? Now what's all this? I'm the one you're accusing, aren't I? I thought you wanted to search me. No, Inspector, not you. Somebody else. What's the meaning of all this, eh? Lost it at last, have you, Sunshine? The court shouldn't have to put up with this nonsense. You've been completely irrational. Be quiet, all of you. Yeah. Iris, Runo's doing what you all told him to do, and having the courage of his convictions. So you should respect that and listen to what he has to say in good faith. Because that's the British way. Tell her, Iris. Well said, young lady. Indeed, this court is in awe of the defense counsel's conviction, and eagerly awaits his next words. Now you what? Now don't be hasty, my lord. If I'm not mistaken about the things I've seen in court today, I'm fairly sure that I know who has that disc at the moment. It's only one person it can be. Counsel, of whom do you request this search now? That would be Nash.
Take that!
Of my lord, Mr. Nash Skulkin. Oh, well, I never. Eh? Blimey. Me? Him? I love those two. Very well then, bailiff. Restrain the witness and conduct a thorough search of his personal effects.
Hold it!
Please, my lord. Inspector? Scotland Yard has to object to the search.
Objection!
I object to your objecting to this search. Unfortunately for you, Inspector, your objections carry no weight here. This courtroom, only the prosecution and the defense have the authority to object. But Lord Van Zeeks, I have no idea what forces are in play that might influence your actions. But personally, I have no intention of obstructing the course of this trial. Bailiff, carry out the search. Now, hold on a minute. I don't know nothing. Nothing about no disc. Got it out. Ah! Here, my lord, in the witness's pocket. I found this. Good lord, that's another music box disc. I don't know nothing about it. Nothing. Busted. That's the second music box disc left behind by Magnus McGilded. Is it not, Inspector Gregson? Order. Mr. Skulkin, what have you to say for yourself? He genuinely doesn't know. Gordon Bennett. Just Gordon Flamin' Bennett. I swear I didn't know nothing about that disc. Honest to God. Counsel, would you please explain what exactly is going on here? The alleged deal that was struck was between this witness and this detective, no? Without question, my lord. Then, for pity's sake, why on earth was this man in possession of the disc the inspector treated for information? Inspector Gregson is a shrewd, calculating man who rarely loses his composure. At one particular point in this trial, he exhibited some unusual behavior for a brief moment. I don't recall. What unusual behavior? It was, yes, during my cross-examination of Mr. Graydon. Tell me, Mr. Graydon, when you left the pawnbrokery that night, was it by any chance with the second disc in your jacket pocket? I admit to nothing of the sort. Well, Mr. Graydon answered my questions. The inspector appeared to have grabbed Nash Skulkin by his coat and was shaking him violently. Yeah, he did know. Thought me noggin was gonna fall clean off, I did. I was wishing I'd been born as me brother, I was. With a small stout head. What exactly happened to make the detective attack you like that? I ain't got a clue. They just suddenly turned and grabbed me whistle like that and started shaking me. Why the blazes didn't you mention the third gun when you got you down to the station? That's what he said. Got it right down my ear hole, he did. Me head's still throbbing now. The way the detective behaved then was extremely out of character. Looking back now. Must have been then that he did it. That was the opportunity Inspector Gregson created for himself in order to hide the disc. Ah, well, bless my wig. He hid it. You. I'm afraid I fail to comprehend the motive here. The detective had acquired the disc he was after. Why on earth would he then proceed to hide it in another man's pocket? This is a court of law. We could have submitted the item as evidence. He didn't want to. It would appear, my lord, that the inspector was not at liberty to do that. Why ever not? As the man himself revealed earlier, his current assignment has some special conditions. My orders were: cover the medium used to convey the secrets leaked from the ministry. And do it on the QT. Strictly hush-hush. That was literally like 5 minutes ago. A hush-hush? A top-secret assignment, is it? As far as we're aware, the information stolen comes from confidential government communications. It would seem that if that information were to be revealed in court as evidence, it would be problematic. Does that sum up the situation, Inspector? No, I'm operating under direct orders from the ministry. Afraid I'm not at liberty to answer that question. So, realizing there was a chance that you may be searched here in court, you took steps to hide the disc you had acquired from the witness. What does this mean? He only pretended to attack Mr. Skulkin in order to get close enough to him to slip the second disc into his pocket. So it was all a pretense. Well now, Inspector Gregson, and you, Mr. Graydon, are you prepared to admit to the accusation made against you of this alleged deal? Who's gonna sell out whom? Admit to it. Yours truly. Please. Mr. Graydon! Clearly our Eastern visitor has an uncommonly active imagination. However, there's no proof that I passed that disc to the inspector.
Objection!
But then, how do you explain the reason why you knew about the peephole? I'm under no obligation to explain. What? Yes, I lied in my testimony. That I admit, so sentence me accordingly. That is all I admit. Murder, leaking government secrets, striking a deal with a detective. All of it is this young Eastern man's fancy. I have no idea what any of that is about. You... What? How many times have we exploded in this episode alone? Well, what about you then, Inspector Gregson? Do you admit to making a deal with Mr. Graydon in order to acquire the disc? Ladies and gents of the jury, as a Scotland Yard inspector, I will declare this and more. I am acting in the best interest of the country. Whatever I've done, it's been in the name of justice. Uh-oh. So, as members of the public of this fine country, I'd like to think that justice will be your guide and light when you're making your decisions. Oh boy. This is quite a quandary indeed. Rarely have I ever encountered such extraordinary tumultuousness in the concluding of a trial. Nevertheless, in the absence of any further evidence to be presented, I believe it is time that we put the matter to the jury for their final leanings. Well now, as a fellow servant of Queen and country, I must say I sympathize with the old inspector. Oh no. Yes, he's a dependable man, I'm quite sure. In service, one becomes a good judge of character. Even crossing your eyes doesn't help when it comes to looking at this case. It's all blurred to me. Well, as a fellow professional, I'd like to put my faith in the detective, really. Graydon is a highly skilled operator. Stop. Currently in presence of idol. Stop. Okay, you're useless. Detective is very much trust in eyes. More than this, I cannot say. I don't believe it. These 6 jurors are... They're going to believe Gregson? They declare the decision now. Is Ginny going to be found guilty? If I don't manage to produce some definitive evidence right now, then we're going to lose. Are there some proof that Graydon killed Mr. Windibank, or stole those government secrets? Or some evidence to force Gregson into admitting that he struck a deal with a witness? I know one thing we could do. Well then, counsel, I think it's time I imposed on the jurors to declare their final decisions, no? That is, unless you have some compelling evidence you have thus far not presented to the court. And if the judge called the jurors to announce their leanings, Gina will be found guilty. So there's no choice here, Runo. You have to throw some more evidence at them. This is it now. It all comes down to this. What do I present against? Gregson or Graydon? Oh boy. Oh, baby. I think we go against Gregson here. Inspector Gregson. There's one final piece of evidence I would like you to see. Eh? What's that then? If you refuse to acknowledge that you did in fact strike a deal with a witness here today, you leave us no choice but to examine this piece of evidence thoroughly. Well, go on. This is my last chance. It looks like I'm going to have to force his hand here. One final piece of evidence to get this detective to admit to the deal he clearly struck with Graydon. I feel like it's the music box.
Take that!
So now we can play the music discs. Is that Mr. McGilden's peculiar music box, Council? Yes, with a disc already in place, ready to play. I think perhaps now would be a good time to listen to the sound produced by the music box again. Only this time, with the second disc we've just discovered set in place as well. Ah, goodness! This disc, Council. Uh-oh. No, wait, no, I can't let you do that. Why not? Ah, because, well, this has got nothing to do with this case, that's why.
Objection!
It was always going to be against Gregson, given the effect he had on the jury. Not true, Inspector. Eh? Defense has already proposed. The sounds heard by the court earlier from this music box were part of a Morse code message. Ugh. We know that Morse code comprises of two distinct tones. The defense believes that the second disc contains the second tone needed to complete the message. Now we have a chance to confirm that theory. We're quite out loud, Sunshine. We're talking about state secrets here. You go letting the whole courtroom hear confidential information like that. It's treason. Then do you admit the charge? In order to protect those state secrets, you engaged in unlawful dealings with the witness. No, you're mad. Let that secret information out into the public domain. We're making an enemy out of the entire British government, you idiot.
Objection!
Let's not forget, Inspector, that you, a Scotland Yard officer, leaked confidential case details to a witness, that you continue to lie to the court, and all because, by fair means or foul, you're determined to do your duty. Well, by fair means or foul, I'm prepared to do mine. Touché. Don't you dare. I will stop at nothing to protect my client. I don't care who I make an enemy of. Just drinking for the chalice. My lord, if you please. The court must hear the sounds made by that music box. Come on, Van Seeks, for Pete's sake. Stop him.
Objection!
Leg. A leg in our favor. Inspector, you should know my methods by now. I'm a prosecutor. I'm no Scotland Yard puppet. No. In this courtroom, my duty is to the law. So let me propose a toast to uncovering the truth by fair means or foul. No! He's ready to see. Very well, the defense's stance here and that of the prosecution have been made very clear, I feel. Therefore, in accordance with the defense's request, the court will now listen as this music box is set in operation once more. This time with the second disc in place, and both discs playing simultaneously. The faces, that camera angle, that was beautiful. Two different tones. Oh, listen to that. It's unmistakable now. It's Morse code. Hold it. All right, I admit it. Whatever you want, for the love of God. Shut that bloomin' box up. Whew. That was a ride. Let me ask you again then, Inspector Gregson. Did you, or did you not, strike a deal with the witness next to you in the stand, Mr. Ashley Graydon? Specifically, did you furnish the witness with confidential case details in exchange for this music box disc? Did you reveal the existence of the people in the pawnbroker's storeroom door, Inspector? I did. Stop! What are you doing, man? It's all exactly like the young Eastern lawyer said. The trial resumed after the recess. We were stood here in the stand together. That's when he approached me with a deal. Shut up, you imbecile. Shut up! Psst, you there. You're that detective who turned up at the pawnbroker the other day, aren't you? may have something you're looking for, Inspector, with me at this very moment. So how about a trade? I suggest you accept. Information that may make certain individuals uncomfortable will soon become very public indeed. Couldn't let that information become public knowledge, or under any circumstances. So I accepted the man's proposal and told him details about the case that should have put him in the clear. People in the storeroom door, and the bloodstains on the overcoat. How did you know about those? By giving false testimony, this witness intended to have the defendant wrongly accused of murder. Inspector, you knew that. Yet you still revealed those details to facilitate the witness's perjury. I did. But then it turned out the people had only been made that night, and after the incident took place. Scotland Yard wasn't aware of that. I'm perfectly honest. Well, Mr. Graydon, neither was I. What do you have to say for yourself? There's nothing, and no one left for you to hide behind. You struck a deal with the inspector in order to escape conviction of a very serious crime. Namely this. You are the third intruder who broke into the pawnbrokery on the night in question. And you perpetrated the murder of the proprietor, Mr. Pop Windebank. You. Snap. Traitor! Oh, God. My chips. Bailiff! Restrain that man! At once! That's it then. It's all over.